Hello, everybody. I'm Evan Kamikow, and welcome to The Toss-Up. Now that 2020 is over, it's time for all college and professional sports to come back, and this is the place to be. Each week, join myself and an expert-line panel dissect the latest sports news from some of the nation's most elite college programs here in Bloomington to the biggest stadiums and stages around the world. Stick around because we have a great show for you coming up on The Toss-Up. The end of March means a lot of things for different people. Some people see it as the end of the NCAA March Madness basketball tournament. Some people see it as 10 days till the Masters gets underway. But I am not one of those people, even though I fully am. The end of March means one thing. Opening day for Major League Baseball is right around the corner. Like I said in the last week's show, this is my favorite time of year, and the 2021 Major League Baseball season is sure to be unlike any season before, and far different from the 2020 season. With fans back in the stands and bleachers, 2021 is going to be a fun season and a great year to get back to the ballpark. Whether you're going to watch the St. Louis Cardinals home run race between Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt, Francisco Lindor starting at shortstop for the New York Mets, or the defending champion LA Dodgers and new starting pitcher Trevor Bauer, 2021 is going to be a lot of fun. So, let's toss up the 2021 MLB season. Joining me on the panel this week to do so are IUSTV's own Justin Berger and Josh Bode. Guys, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
All right, so let's get right into it. Francisco Lindor, Mr. Smile, coming over from Cleveland to New York. Justin, we'll start with you. What are your reactions on that trade?
Yeah, I'd like to voice my anger with you at first for putting azaleas in my mind. Now we got to talk about baseball. I got golf in my head. But Lindor, the Mets. The Mets got an owner who started tweeting, and all of a sudden they thought they were once again contenders. I disagree with that. Francisco Lindor is going to be a huge difference, but I think it's more about what it does for the Indians than what it does for the Mets. I don't think this puts the Mets in the next category of the NL, which is already super crowded at the top. I don't see him having a profound effect on the Mets' postseason performance.
Josh?
Yeah, I think it speaks a lot more about the Indians and small market baseball because it's really bad for baseball to see one of the top tier players getting traded away from a small market team into a big market team. And we've seen through valuations of all these teams, they have plenty of money to go out and spend money on big time players, and they choose not to. But I disagree with you, Justin. I think this does actually put the Mets in the top tier. I think they're sitting around division winning, probably wild card though, and they have a roster that's set to win in October.
It's funny because I agree with both sides, but Justin, you brought up that point that they're not top contenders yet, and Francisco Lindor does a lot for a roster, but come December, it matters about pitching. Doesn't matter how you're hitting, and I think yes, he will help the New York Mets come October baseball. Wow. When it comes time for postseason, if the Mets are in the race in September, but at the end of the day, if the Mets are only going to go as far as their pitching takes them, that's kind of how baseball works, but I think Francisco Lindor could have an MVP caliber season in New York. Finally, that he's in a big market, and that could be a lot for him. The fact that he's in a big market, he's never been in a big market before, you know. His face will be on billboards all over New York City. It already is. So that's something that I'm really excited to see. Another big trade that happened, Nolan Arenado came from the Rockies to the Cardinals. As a Cubs fan, I'm not super happy, but Josh, we'll start with you. What are your expectations for Nolan this season in St. Louis?
Yeah, so Rockies players seem to be a little bit over-criticized when they move from one team to another because of the Coors Field and how much of a hitting ballpark it is. And Nolan Arenado doesn't have great splits away from home. He's like around 60 points lower in batting average, around 200 in OPS. But at the same time, he's Nolan Arenado. He's a top-tier player. And while we may see some regression, he'll still be putting up around all-star numbers. And I think he's really going to elevate the Cardinals into a division-winning team.
I mean, Josh couldn't have said it any better. That you get a perennial MVP winner, that certainly helps. He's playing across the diamond from Paul Goldschmidt, who is also a perennial MVP candidate. They still have great pitching with Dakota Hudson and Jack Flaherty. And the division, the NL Central, I think is going to take a step back this year. So I think clearly, and we might talk about this later, but I think clearly the NL Central is going to be dominated by the Cardinals this year.
And we will get to that later, so let's hold off on that. But the Cardinals aren't only one of the heavy favorites in the NL. Another heavy favorite in the NL are, defending champion LA Dodgers. So, Justin, we'll start with you on this one. Are they going to repeat this year? Do you see them walking right to the World Series?
Yeah, okay, so 2 questions. I think they are going to repeat as NL West champions. I'm a big, prove it to me, show it to me, which is why I don't love the Mets yet. That's the same reason I don't love the Padres. Like, let me see you on the field as a unit. I know you got all the names, but let's see it on the field. I do think the Dodgers will still repeat as NL West. I don't think it's going to get easier for them for the World Series because the NL got better. You got the Cardinals, you got the Braves, you got the Padres. Fine, you got the Mets. It's going to be harder for them. The NL is better this year than they were last year.
Yeah. Objectively, I think they have to be the favorite coming into the season. And I was thinking, I almost forgot that Mookie Betts, probably the second best player in baseball, is on this roster because I was too busy thinking about Trevor Bauer coming to the team, Clayton Kershaw, Walker Buehler. And my favorite thing about them is Cody Bellinger, the reigning MVP, was hitting 6 for them in the World Series last year, which speaks a lot to their depth. And while the NL did get a lot better and the Padres are an awesome team, they really just have the best top-to-bottom roster in baseball, so they have to be the preseason favorite.
Yeah, I mean, he's right.
Yeah, and another thing that neither of you mentioned about the Dodgers is the addition to the pitching staff, not only of Trevor Bauer, but also they're getting David Price back. David Price, got traded in the Mookie Betts trade to LA, opted out in 2020, and now you're adding him, who's, Cy Young Award winner, knows how to win in the postseason, to an already stacked Dodgers rotation that features Kershaw, Buehler, Julio Urias, just to name a few. It just seems like the Dodgers are a cheat code every year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much David Price is going to add on the mound. I'm sure he'll help a lot in the locker room, but he's like 600 years old now, so we'll see how that works out for them. They don't have room for him in the starting rotation. No. That's how good their starting rotation is.
Because you also have Trevor May, Tony Gonsolin as well, that I didn't mention earlier.
Yeah.
It's going to be really good. So my question, kind of off the Dodgers, you brought up the Padres. We'll start here. Is that the best rivalry in baseball, Josh, Dodgers-Padres right now?
It absolutely has to be, and their roster is set up for it to be the best rivalry in baseball for the next 5 years. And hopefully we get to watch this a lot more, and we kind of push Yankees-Red Sox to the side a little bit for the next few years, because these 2 teams are awesome. They're a ton of fun, star-studded, and they should be perennially 2 of probably the top 5 teams competing for World Series championships.
So I won't take that one. I agree with Josh. I could be a homer and say Braves Mets. I think that's going to be a fun one in the NL East. But I think a good rivalry, just because of how much they hated playing each other last year, is the Yankees and the Rays. I don't know how. I still think the Rays are going to be good. I don't think they're going to be World Series runner-ups good. But they did not enjoy playing each other, especially down the stretch last year. So I'll take them as the best rivalry this year.
Yeah, and an interesting rivalry that we haven't mentioned yet. Obviously, I'm partial. Cubs-Cardinals, I think that's going to be my favorite. That's solely because I'm a Cubs fan.
Right.
But if I'd have to pick an actual rivalry that's going to be good, that no one's really expecting yet, it's definitely going to be White Sox-Twins. I think those are 2 teams that are very young. You look at the White Sox especially, that rotation is finally healthy. You add Michael Kopech to that rotation of already Dallas Keuchel, to name a few guys that are just completely slipping my mind right now.
Giolito.
But Giolito, thank you.
I got you.
And it's just that and then you look at the Twins. They won the AL Central last year, and the White Sox are right there. And another team that could be in it, that this could be a very hot take, is the Kansas City Royals. I think the Kansas City Royals could be something this year.
Yeah.
That is hot.
It's a hot take.
It's hot.
Another fun one to look out for, since we didn't have fans last year, is the Astros versus the fans. And
I think that's just the best rivalry.
Everything the fans have to say
not even
about
2 teams, just the fans and the Astros. But what could be better is the Astros and the trash cans. But I think we could get to that another time. So we talked a little bit about it already. The NL Central is definitely going to be weak. Justin, you brought that up. The Cubs took a big step back. The Cardinals, you could say, took a step forward by adding Nolan Arenado. The Brewers, Christian Yelich wasn't there last year. So who do you guys think is going to win that division?
You know how I feel. Cardinals, for all the reasons I said 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, it has to be the Cardinals. And my favorite thing about the NL Central's offseason is, I don't remember exactly the crazy stat, but it was getting towards the end of free agency, and they'd spent, collectively across the 5 teams, $10 million total. The Cardinals are the only team that really seems like they want to win right now. And the Cubs trading Yu Darvish, obviously taking a step back. they seem like they also don't want to win. So it has to be the Cardinals.
And you still in that division have the Brewers, who are 50-50, depends on if their pitching is going to show up any night, and their offense too. But I would agree. I think it's going to be the Cardinals, and I can't believe I'm saying that.
Yeah.
But, all right. We talked about the Cubs. They made the big trade with the Rays, with the Padres. They sent Yu Darvish over there. Yu Darvish's rotation mate, Blake Snell, left the Rays. How do you guys think that the Rays are going to do without Blake Snell this year?
Well, they still have Tyler Glass now, who's one of the most promising young pitchers in the game. And they added a few vets. I think they signed Michael Wacha, Rich Hill, and Chris Archer is coming back to Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
And the thing about the Rays is you probably won't have known any of their players, and they're going to play big roles, and they're probably going to be successful in their roles. So I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to their front office and to Kevin Cash, and they'll still probably be a postseason team and work through losing probably the best player.
Yeah, they also lost Charlie Morton too, and I agree with Josh. I don't think they're going to take a step back, but I don't think it's going to be gigantic because their offense with a Rosarena and guys like Meadows, they're still fantastic.
Brendan Lau.
Yeah. But losing Charlie Morton, losing Blake Snell, those are two of your best guys on the staff, and Blake Snell's one of the best pitchers in pro baseball. So, yes, they will take a step back. I don't think it's going to be as big as people think it will be, though.
And you have to remember too, the Yankees are a little bit better than last year. I'd like to think. The Yankees shouldn't be slept on in that division, and quite frankly, I think the Red Sox are going to take a step up this year from what they have been, which is going to give the Rays trouble because the Rays seem to kind of have a cakewalk last season through the AL East. And I think this year, it's going to change. So one of the questions that people at home might be asking why I'm really bringing this up, because these two teams are arguably the two worst teams in baseball right now. But who has the better future rotation, the Marlins or the Tigers?
People forget the Marlins were a playoff team last year. I will take the Marlins. Sixto Sanchez, Lopez, and Alcantara, I think, are going to be three of the best. They're all less than 26 years old. I think they're going to be one of the best three-man groups in baseball over the next 10 years. It's just, can Derek Jeter's group keep them in Miami? Because, remember don't remember, we weren't alive, but remember reading after the 97 World Series, their owner sold everything, and it was a completely different ownership group, but can Miami keep its star players? We'll see, but I'm definitely taking the Marlins.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you, Justin. Pablo Lopez, Sixto Sanchez, and Sandy Alcantara. And I know you, as a Cubs fan, got to watch Sixto and Alcantara in the wild card round last year. They were showing their nasty stuff. And it really comes down to experience in the major leagues, too. A lot of the Tigers guys have not many starts in the majors, and a lot of them are still in the minors. And on top of those three guys, the Marlins still have two top 70 prospects that are pitchers that will be coming up in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and I think I'd have to agree with you guys. The Marlins do have the better future rotation as of now. I mean, watching that Cubs-Marlins series when Sixto Sanchez just, blew past the entire Cubs lineup. It was just, strikeout after strikeout, and he was hitting 98 like he wasn't even trying. Yeah. And then to see Pablo Lopez come back the next day and pretty much do the same thing to the Cubs was just brutal. I mean, it's such a bummer when you're watching your team getting schooled by the Marlins. You're like, bottom feeders, should they be in this? But yet somehow they were. So coming up after the break, IUSTV reporter Ryan Scott is joining the show to update everyone on familiar faces and new places. Then we have our Fast Fire MLB postseason predictions. We'll be right back. Now joining us on the show to give you an update on familiar faces and new places is our very own Ryan Scott. Ryan, who are some familiar faces and new places?
Thanks, Evan. The weather's warming up, meaning we are just 1 week away from opening day in Major League Baseball. I don't know about anybody else, but I am certainly happy to see spring baseball being played after one of the strangest seasons in history. While the pandemic will continue to have its effects, fans will be back cheering from the stands for the full 162-game MLB season. An unusual regular season calls for quite the offseason, as transactions included some of the biggest names around the league. Major contract deals were signed all over, and we will now see some familiar faces in new places. Starting in the NL Central, the St. Louis Cardinals added slugger Nolan Arenado after spending 8 years in Colorado. While signing the third baseman through 2027, St. Louis looks to add some fuel to their offense while remaining both strong in pitching and defense. This was one of the most lopsided trades ever seen, as they got the former MVP and Gold Glover for virtually nothing. Speaking of the NL Central, the Chicago Cubs traded away last year's Cy Young runner-up Yu Darvish to the San Diego Padres. Darvish will join ace Blake Snell, who was recently acquired from the American League champion Tampa Bay Rays. Fernando Tatis Jr.'s contract was also extended for 14 years, as he hopes to bring home a championship to Slam Diego in the not-too-distant future. Another NL West blockbuster deal saw Trevor Bauer signing with the defending World Series champion LA Dodgers. After winning the Cy Young Award in elite fashion last season, this looks to be one of the most commanding pitching rotations in baseball, adding Bauer to a rotation full of stars like Clayton Kershaw, Walker Buehler, and David Price. The Big Apple will also be seeing a big smile at shortstop every day, as Francisco Lindor was traded to the Mets after playing 6 years for the Cleveland Indians. Starting pitcher Carlos Carrasco also joins the four-time All-Star in New York. With a potent lineup and all-star pitching staff, look for the Amazons to have some late October success. Finally, the Toronto Blue Jays made a big splash with the addition of George Springer from the Houston Astros. The outfielder joins young talent in Bo Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and Marcus Semien. Toronto has a promising lineup, and as long as they can stay healthy, they are sure to be contenders come October. That's the scoop on familiar faces and new places. Evan, back to you.
Thanks, Ryan. Now it's time for our quick-fire questions. Josh and Justin, we do this every week. I'm going to ask you guys a series of questions, and you have about 30 or so seconds to answer. You guys ready to go fast?
Of course.
Let's do it.
All right, so first one, here we go. Who are your AL and NL MVP this season? Josh, we'll start with you.
It's a boring answer, but Mike Trout in the AL. He's arguably, maybe at the end of his career, going to be the greatest player of all time. And last year was weird seeing him not win the MVP, so I'm going with him this year. And in the NL, hot picks probably Juan Soto and Fernando Tatis Jr. But I'm going to go with someone a little bit off the beaten path. I'm going to go Ronald Acuna Jr., who people are forgetting about a little bit. And his teammate won it last year, Freddie Freeman. I think he's going to outstep him this year, and he's going to take his next step forward and win the MVP.
So we have very similar lists. I had Mike Trout, but instead of that, this is TV. I will take anybody on the Yankees. Gleyber Torres, DJ LeMahieu. NL-wise, I had Soto, Acuna, Tatis. So one of the young three triumvirate. I'll take one of those guys.
Yeah, I'd go with, in the AL, Mike Trout. I think he didn't win it last year. Correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't believe he won it last year.
No.
But I think that this year he'll win it. He's a dad. You know, he now has, dad power. I think that's going to do something really good for him. And I think in the NL, I'm going to go Nolan Arenado, as much as I don't really want to say it. I think a change of scenery could be a really good thing for him as well. So another name that you guys didn't mention, who is on the Rockies still, Trevor Story. He could be someone who will win it. All right. We talked about the MVP. One of the other big awards is the Cy Young. Who, Justin, we'll start with you, is your AL and NL Cy Young Award winner?
So I'll start in the NL, and I will be a homer. I will take any of the Braves three. That is Fried, Soroka, or Ian Anderson. Soroka will be back in late April, so he'll have pretty much a full season. Max Fried could have won Cy Young last year if Jacob deGrom didn't have one of the best seasons of all time. So I'm confident in the starting staff in Atlanta. On the AL side, I will take somebody that's younger. I'll take Lucas Giolito from the White Sox.
All right, I love that pick as a White Sox fan. But in the AL, I'm going to go another boring pick. I'm going to go Garrett Cole, probably the most dominant pitcher in the league right now, and he's going to get it done on the AL side. In the NL side, I'm going to have a little bit more fun. I'm going to go Jack Flaherty with the Cardinals. Was insane at the end of the 2019 season, and he's going to have a sort of repeat season that he did at the end of the year in 2019, and he's going to win the Cy Young in the NL.
I like that.
My NL Cy Young, I'm going to go with Walker Buehler. I think, he's now finally at that age where he's entering his prime, and I think this is going to be one of the best seasons he'll put up. That could be a very hot take. I don't know if he can pitch Clayton Kershaw on that rotation or really anyone. And then in the AL, I'm probably going to go with Giolito. I think that he'll have a really good season this year. If I wouldn't say Giolito, probably, someone on the Yankees, Garrett Cole. I think that's a pretty, safe bet that he'll be up there in voting. All right, so we've talked about awards. Let's talk about the two teams that are going to be the best in each division, division and conference. Who are your AL and NL championship predictions?
So I have got the Braves in the NL. beating the Dodgers in a rematch of last season. And then in the AL, I've got the Yankees beating somebody. Maybe we'll say the Blue Jays. I think the Blue Jays are going to get hot late, make it as a wild card. I think the Yankees will win the division, and then we'll see Yankees, Blue Jays in the AL championship.
Yeah, I think the Yankees will be in the ALCS, but I like the White Sox. Young team, going to take the next step forward and make the championship series. The injury to Eloy Jimenez today hurt, but I think they're going to make it. And I like your Braves Dodgers in the NL. Braves are going to get their revenge on the Dodgers from last year. They're going to get over the hump and make it to the World Series. And the Dodgers will make it after what hopefully will be a series of all time against the Padres in the wild card round.
I'm going to go a little bit different. I'm going to go Dodgers-Nationals in the NL. I think that the Nationals will have their full pitching staff back. They're healthy. We haven't talked about them yet on the show. You know, you have Juan Soto. They won the World Series 2 years ago. I think they're going to be back, especially now as when you have John Lester as your number 4 pitcher. And then against them is the Dodgers. And then in the AL, my prediction would be I'm going to go with the White Sox, and I got to say the Rays again. I think those are 2 teams that would be really fun to watch. Yeah. And that's just who I think would be the best in that situation. But again, I love the Blue Jays there. I think they can make a late season push. Another team that we haven't mentioned yet today, either the Astros or the Athletics, a team from the West. They could get there, but I'm going to stick with the Rays and the White Sox. So, what are your World Series predictions now that we've talked about the championship games?
Yeah, for what it's worth, I think the A's will win the AL West, but you know, we'll see. They'll trimble down the side like they always do. World Series champs, again, I'm from Atlanta. I am biased, but it's not like I'm telling you the Falcons are going to beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. The Braves are a really good baseball team. So I think the Braves beat the Yankees. I think that's what I said. And I will say Braves or Yankees in 6.
Braves or Yankees in 6?
I also have Braves and Yankees. I thought the Braves were going to be a little bit of a hot take, and then I remembered Justin's from Atlanta. I think the Braves are going to solidify themselves as the World Series champions. And I was going to say in 6, but I'll say in 7. It's going to go the distance, and the Braves are going to win it.
Great minds think alike.
My World Series prediction, I got White Sox. And, you know, just to have some fun, why not? You never know what they're going to do. And the other team would be the Dodgers. I have the Dodgers repeating as champions. I just think that right now there isn't a team that I could see beating them in 7 games. If the Rays couldn't do it last year, maybe the Braves can do it this year, but I think the Dodgers are going to repeat as champions this year.
The Braves could have done it last year. They blew a 3-1 lead. I mean, that was, you know, welcome to Atlanta. It was a disaster, but we'll see what happens.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining the show. That does it for this week. Be sure to continue the discussion on our Instagram page at IUSTV Sports and our Twitter page at IUSTV Sports. We are always looking for ways to improve the show, so please feel free to ask any questions you might have or suggestions for future episodes. Everyone stay safe. Thank you for watching at home. And as always, toss it up, find out if we'll catch it, and we'll see you next week.